California is a big state. California is 12% of the entire nation's population, 40 million people. And we've been fortunate. We have less than 3,000 deaths in California. I haven't taken the latest data, but as of last week, 55% of all the deaths came from New York and New Jersey that were hit the hardest. We took actions in California long before New York did. Maybe that had helped. But just as we are such a large state, probably 4 states within itself, I think the governor being so far away in Sacramento and dealing with something 6 hours away in Orange County should really listen to the locals. Why would he pick on one beach and not all the others? Why, if you had local authorities say it was safe? Myself, having known those beaches, there's some of the best beaches in our entire nation. They have some of the best lifeguards, more supervision there than I find in almost any other beach across California. And I think the governor kind of reversed himself a few days later. He's now looking to open up maybe a little sooner. And I think that's appropriate. Let's do it in a safe manner. I believe everybody across this country will deal with it differently than they had before. The handshake is gone. The social distancing is a natural for no matter what they do. They will practice in a different way. And I think we will be in a safer manner as we open. Now let's try it through Zoom, how we're going to do this. We'll have our first question.
As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please use the chat function directly with the moderator to share your name and outlet. Our first question comes from Christina Peterson with the Wall Street Journal. Christina, your line is now open.
Hi there, McCarthy. Could you give us your expectations for the special election in California next week to replace Congresswoman Katie Hill? And do you think that's representative of what we're going to see broadly speaking in November, or do you see it as more of an anomaly?
Thank you for your question. And before I begin to answer, happy Mother's Day to her on her very first Mother's Day. And if we were going to do Zoom, she should have brought Oscar so we could all see him. We should bring her back if she has Oscar. This is a special election about Katie Hill, who had to resign based upon the ethics complaint with her and a staffer. This is a seat that in California we lost by more than 9 points. The Democrats have spent a great deal amount of money, more than millions of dollars, even in the primary with the top 2. I think they have a very flawed candidate. They have a candidate that while she was cutting speakers, she was giving herself a pay raise. We have a candidate by the name of Mike Garcia, first generation American, who went to the Naval Academy, became a fighter pilot, defended our nation, and is back working in business. I think just the contrast itself will not be an anomaly. I can't predetermine what this election about. The Democrats early on tried to change the course of the election based upon COVID. It's just an all mail-in ballot election. They also, is a real concern in California where the Democrats have changed the election law that people can harvest absentee ballots. We'd asked the governor, especially in this COVID situation, if he would not allow people on the beaches. He shouldn't allow people going door to door to pass COVID around to collect absentee ballots. He passed and would not answer that question, moved it on to the Secretary of State. Secretary of State Padilla said, no, this will be a great opportunity to pick up ballots. It's a real concern to me of a health crisis that Democrats would put politics before the health of people. This election is on May 12th. We'll see what the outcome will be. But I will put Mike Garcia up next to their candidate any day of the week. Which is most concerning about this. This has part of the aerospace corridor. Their nominee criticized Mike Garcia, a fighter pilot defending the nation, that he was a pilot and about his service. I do not think anybody in Congress deserves to serve here if they criticize somebody about the service of defending their nation. Next question.
Our next question comes from Julie Grace Brufke with The Hill. Julie Grace, your line is now open.
McCarthy, Democrats are talking about potentially having rent cancellation and monthly stimulus in the next package. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, and if you could kind of give some details on what the GOP is looking for in the next CARES package.
Okay, say that again. I didn't get the first part. Did you hear what the first?
Did you hear what the first part? About potentially having provisions in the next bill on rent cancellation and monthly stimulus checks for individuals, and potentially having PPP loans for Chamber of Commerce. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, and what you'd overall like to see in the next bill.
I would say before we move to the next bill, let's make sure the 3 trillion that we had legislated and appropriated gets implemented and gets implemented correctly. Then you have the Federal Reserve that put in another 4 trillion. That's $7 trillion into the economy. Before we take some other action by just picking a number for a bill, let's get the data back of the help we need. Let's get states open back up to have a real knowledge of what's needed in this process, and then deal with any legislation in the future by committees, with hearings, with markups, and with knowledge. I think that's the best approach we can take. Another question.
Our next question comes from Paul Corson with Sinclair TV. Paul, your line is now open.
Good morning, Leader McCarthy. Thanks, by the way, for initiating the video conferencing aspect of your weekly availability. It helps us quite a lot. My question has to do with the China Task Force, and I'm wondering what considerations you've been giving to the task force mission about China trade and about China's military aspirations as part of the committee's work.
Great question. I wonder how many of the reporters cleaned their house before they went online. I don't know. It looks very clean. It's very nice. This is something that the task force will look at as well. It's very concerning to me when China went to build these artificial islands, and President Xi told President Obama that they would never be militarized, and then quickly they were. It's concerning to me the actions they have taken in the South China Sea. It's concerning to me the pressure they are mounting in Hong Kong and others. These are all issues of why, prior to the COVID, I asked for a committee that was an equal number of Republicans and Democrats that we could work together on these issues. Let known what the Chinese have done to our supply chain. We do not make any aspirin or penicillin in America. What did we learn about the COVID? When the Chinese found out about what was moving in Wuhan, what did they do? They lied to the world, and then they tried to corner the market and store as much PPE as they could. They use it as leverage to other nations as well. France found at the beginning of time why they went and shared and sent personal protection equipment to China. Soon when the virus came to them, after the WHO told them it doesn't move from human to human, they end up having to buy PPE back from China. These are the actions that I think not just America, but our allies around the world will take up these committees as well. Watching what Japan is doing, of subsidizing, of moving companies back out of mainland China into Japan. That China will not have control over different industries when it comes to supply chain. We're watching other items happen within America that might not just deal directly with COVID, but also with the benefits of where they're going. It's interesting to me that China owns a food processing plant in South Dakota. Is that another challenge that we have for the future when it comes to our food supply? These are all questions that should be asked, investigated, and prepare America that we can handle anything in the future. It is something that President Trump has not only talked about as president and worked on, it's something he did as candidate Trump and as citizen Trump. I think the rest of the nation has now woken up to it. We're doing one more question?
Yes. Our next question comes from Crystal Hayes with USA Today. Crystal, your line is now open.
Thanks, Leader McCarthy. Just had a kind of off. You're right. Off of Julie Grace's question, I kind of have a two-part question. Some Republicans this week have said that another coronavirus package might not be necessary due to states reopening. Do you still believe another package is needed? And then secondly, are you supportive of additional funds going to state, local, and tribal governments, or possibly expanding how the original $150 billion already passed can be used, perhaps for first responders to retain them?
That's a great question. First of all, before we look at any new package, I think we should make sure we implement the $3 trillion that we have just passed, along with the other $4 trillion that the Federal Reserve has put in, $7 trillion into our economy. Let's make sure that is implemented correctly. Before we take up any new bill, let's have hearings. Let's have the information and data come back to us and see if there's a need. As states open up, there'll be a difference of what's needed today than is needed tomorrow. And I'm willing to look at all that. When it comes to funding for states, that's why in our funding that we supplied more than $500 billion in 1 month, and we've even given more now. And remember, put that in perspective. An entire year, we use roughly a little more than $600 billion for Medicare, but what we've been able to move through the states. My concern, especially when you move money just to states, does it get to the cities and counties that need it? What I have found in history before, it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or Democratic governor, if the money goes directly to them, they take a big portion of that, their cut, before it goes down to the cities and counties. I would like to look at this differently. Let's let the cities and counties put grants in directly into the federal government. So money goes directly, just as you went with the classroom, it goes into the classroom, not to the administration. Let's make sure funding is only there for things that are dealt with when it comes to COVID. There's a great deal of money already sent to the states. Let's make sure it's getting there. If some of this money that we sent to the states needs greater flexibility so they can do that, I'm more than willing and open to look at providing them flexibility, especially what we've already spent and sent. Again, I thank you all for joining. For all those mothers out when it comes to Mother's Day, I wish you a very happy Mother's Day. Take care.